Hello everybody, welcome back to my workshop and welcome back to my garage. This is video number 5 for the Pango Music Flying V guitar kit that we've been doing. And what this video is going to cover is basically getting the guitar to this point right here. It's finished. Came out really well. So if you remember back to the beginning of this series, what I wanted to do was basically build the guitar straight from the kit, use everything that the kit had, build it as is, kind of give a running total of everything that went into the guitar, time-wise and price-wise. And then after that, play it, get some sound samples, see how it plays, and then go through and do basically some upgrades to it. New tuners, new electronics, do a full fret level crown and dress, because I didn't do that on this because I wanted to see how the guitar would play just out of the box for somebody that was saying, hey, I want to buy a guitar kit and you don't have all the pieces, parts to do like a level crown and polish of the frets or anything like that. So up to this point, the video has pretty much covered that. So if you remember back earlier, what I decided to do was the tuners that came with it were so cheap that I just decided I wasn't even going to put those tuners on the guitar at all. Basically for 2 reasons. One, because they were so cheap and I was just going to have, and they had furls on the top, I would have had to push those in and then press those back out to put new tuners in. The tuners that came with the kit required 2 screw holes per tuner. I didn't want to have extra holes in the peg head. I wanted to keep it as clean as possible. I knew I was going to upgrade the tuners anyway, and after seeing how poorly the tuners were that came with the kit, I made the decision to do that. And what I did is I went to eBay and I found a set of locking tuners on eBay. They're Jin Ho tuners. So basically they're a no brand tuner, but they've got a 19:1 ratio on it, so a really nice ratio for the tuners. And believe it or not, they were really nice tuners when they came in. So you can see I've got those installed. I went ahead and did that just because I knew I didn't want to have to press the furls out and then put the tuners back in, fill holes, drill holes, all that. I just wanted to do it one time. And then for the strap locks that came with it, I had an extra set of shallow strap of buttons that I use. I use shallow strap locks on all my straps, so I went ahead and installed that, knowing that I was going to do that. But I had several of those on hand from just prior builds and prior guitars that I'd done. Everything else on the guitar, though, is straight from the kit. What I'd like to do now is just kind of give a rundown of the parts and pieces, that the finishing equipment that I had to buy, or the finishing supplies and whatnot that I had to buy to go into the kit, so you'll know basically what this kit's going to cost you just to build it as it is right there, plus the tuners. So the kit was $155 plus $25 in shipping. So basically I'm $180 to my door. I knew I was going to change the tuners. I got those on eBay. They were $40.26 for the Jin Ho Locking Tuners. What I did for grain fill is I used Oxford Supply Company's oil-based grain fill. This is a 4-ounce can, or this is a 6-ounce can, sorry, 6-ounce can. So far this has done 4 guitars. So the price on that was pretty negligible as far as what I had to pay, but if you were going to buy grain filler yourself, you could look at spending about $17 to $25 depending on what you were going to use. That grain filler is $17 from Oxford, plus shipping you'd have to pay on top. You can get stuff from StuMac. They've got an water-based aqua coat that goes on. It's really super nice. I've used that before on several guitars. And then that's about $20 for like a 12-ounce tub. For the top, what I used was Angelus Leather Dyes. These are 3-ounce bottles. I used 3 bottles of that, 3 different colors. So basically I needed 3 different colors. The total price for the Angelus Leather Dye was $7.10. Again, you can get that off of Amazon. That's the Amazon price. You can go directly to the Angelus Leather Dye website and get it for slightly cheaper. And again, this yellow has done 3 guitars so far, and I've still got, well over half a bottle left. So if you're going to do a couple guitars, that's fine. You've got the extra stuff there to do it with. It'll last for a long time, and it'll take you quite a ways. For the color, I used the Krylon Fusion all-in-one. This is the metallic black stainless. This was $9.53 off of Amazon. For the clear coat, what I used was the 2K high gloss clear coat from Easy Repair Automotive. Again, I got this off of Amazon. This was $22.50, and I used 1 can. Basically, you're going to use 1 can anyway, because even if you don't use the full can, after 8 hours, that can is dead anyway. So basically, just running through some quick math, this guitar right there at the way I've got it assembled, and that's if you bought everything individually because you didn't have stuff on hand already, you're looking at $290.59 to get the guitar to this point. Oh, also one thing I did, and I didn't add the price in, I did change the pickup rings, the pickup surrounds. It came with those yellow-green tinted ones that match the tuner pegs. I knew, and the whole pattern was slightly different than what these black ones were. I knew I was going to change those anyway. I don't like that greenish color. I had some in stock. It's an easy swap, but the ones that came with the kit are absolutely fine. There's no problem with them at all. You could use those no problem. So for $290, $291 basically, if you round it up, you've got a really nice guitar. Now, problems with the guitar during assembly. I had one problem with the guitar, actually two. It's all related to the wiring harness. You're going to see in the video as we go through it, the wiring harness was not a good harness. It broke several times. Solder joints came loose several times while I was putting everything together. Had to go through and resolder it. And then the input jack is so cheap that it's actually kind of an oddball size. So when I went to plug it in for the first time, it didn't work. And I was like, holy crap, it doesn't work. And then I went through, I pulled the panel off. I went through to go do and just start do a rewire of the harness. And then what I did is I went ahead and just checked it anyway with a different cable, with a lower quality cable, because the one I was using was a really high quality cable going into it. And that one, it would work if you wiggled it just enough. If you wiggled it and played with it, you could get it to work. The two things I would do if I was to do this kit again, number one, upgrade your tuners immediately. Don't go through the hassle of installing the tuners just to turn around and install new ones. And number two, upgrade your wiring. Just straight out of the box, buy 4 CTS 500K pots, buy a 3-way switch, and buy an output jack, and just rewire the guitar. Don't even use the harness that comes with it. So let's go ahead and get rolling on the video. You can see me going through the final process of getting this thing put together. And then sit back and enjoy. And thanks for joining this video series. So what I did, knowing I was already going to upgrade the tuners, I went ahead and I went on eBay and found a nice set of locking tuners. This is a nice set. It's got a 19:1 ratio. Everything is nice and snug on it. They turn nice and freely. The shaft, as you can see, does not move. The one thing that we are going to have to do, though, is we're going to have to remount the holes for the tuners to go in. So as you can see, the tuner doesn't fit. And the way these are going to go in is these have a piece that goes in from the front. Pretty standard. And what these do is these will screw into the tuner. So these are going from the front, screw in. So you get some snugness there with that screwed into on the headstock, but then you also get the added security of the screw in the back. Now those fit in there, which is great. But what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to enlarge the hole in the back to accommodate this shaft right here, this lower part that's going to go up into the headstock. You do have to be careful because you can split a headstock. What I'm going to be using is a peg head reamer, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the thickness of my shaft here, and then I'll measure where the thickness is on this reamer, and I'll put a piece of tape. You could also use a stepped drill bit to do it. That way, as it goes in, it'll enlarge the hole, and that it's better at keeping it centered. You can just use a normal drill bit, but because you're already drilling into a round hole that's a fairly decent size, it can be a little bit of a pain to center it up. A reamer is definitely the way to go. You can find reamers online, fairly inexpensive. This one is a Stumac reamer. I bought it myself. I'm not sponsored by Stumac or anything. Stumac is very proud of their tools. Stumac tools aren't cheap. So like I said, you can do this with a step drill bit, similar to this right here. This would work extremely well on it, but because I do have the reamer, I am going to use that. So for installing the tuners, what I like to do is I like to go ahead and fit them in the guitar and get the bushings on and then get them lined up. But what I'm going to do first, seeing how I've got the one side, I'm going to go ahead and do the treble side first. I'm going to go ahead and get these pretty much aligned and straight. And you can do this a number of ways. You know, you can just eyesight it. That's not the most accurate way, of course. So what I like to do is I like to just take a straight edge. And I just like to put that straight edge right across the back of the tuners. And as I can see, my tuners are nice and straight and level with that straight edge. Now what I can do is I can snug down the bolts on the front and get ready to drill the pilot holes in the back to attach the screws and secure them. You do want to be careful not to drill through the peg head, so what I've got is I've got my screw depth marked with some tape. So what I'm going to do is just right down through the center. Because these are very small screws, 1/16 inch pilot hole on these, it is very easy to strip the head of the screw if you're not using the right size screwdriver, or if you don't have the pilot hole drilled to the right depth, it'll bottom out and it'll start to strip out the head of the screw, or you can end up snapping the head off the screw, and then you have to, of course, drill it out and go through all that hassle. But there we go. Tuners are installed on the treble side, and getting ready to finish installing the ones on the bass side. All right, so there we have it. Tuners are installed. Front and back views. So it's time to start wiring it up. It comes with the pre-made harness, but I would recommend some caution. Take a good look at it. What I found is one wire was broken on mine, one of the ground wires going to the back of one of the pots. As I was resoldering that, one of the hot wires going to between the volume and the tone pot fell off at one end. While I was fixing that, it fell off at the other. So a couple of the solder joints on it were a little iffy, as I expected. The input jack, don't know if you can see that there. This is not a good quality one. It's just got plastic in between rather than a fiberboard material like you'll get on a Switchcraft jack or whatever. But like I said, I am going to use all of the hardware, electronics that came with it, just to go through that process. Now the switch is the one thing. The switch is actually a pretty good switch. It does look very similar to a Switchcraft switch, but I will change it out when I do all the electronics. The yellow lead here is for your neck pickup, so these are going to go into the neck pickup position. The red lead goes into the neck or bridge position, and then this ground wire here is going to thread up through a hole and go to our stud for the bridge, and that grounds the electronics to the bridge of the guitar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put this into the guitar in the positions that it's supposed to be in, kind of get those set in there, run this up through, and then we'll be ready to install the bridge. So do be careful when you're handling the wire harness. As I found, there were several pieces that broke as I was doing it, so that means they either cut through the wires too much when they were stripping back the insulation, or they just went way too hot on the soldering iron, and damaged the wires that way. So, we're probably going to run into some issues there with the wiring, but we're going to see what happens. I did repair them using the same wire. I just retrimmed the end, resoldered it to the pot and everything. So that's all the same wire, all the same electronics. So let's go ahead and get these in the guitar. So for wiring, bring this in here so you can see what I've got. I've got my input jack in position. I've got my three-way switch positioned. The bottom two, this is the volume for the bridge. This is the tone for the bridge, volume for the neck, tone for the neck. What I've got to do now is when I feed the pickups through, the hot wire from the bridge pickup will go to this first lug right here. And then this red wire from the tone control will also go to the same lug. Those will get soldered together. The same thing on my neck pickup. The one thing I do have to do still is I have to resolder the ground that goes from my volume pot on my neck to my tone pot on my neck. That one broke, so I have to resolder that one. And then I'll feed the ground wire here up through the hole in the control cavity into the bridge stud location, and when I push the bridge stud down, that'll ground all my electronics to the bridge. Alright, don't know if you can see it in here or not, but I do have the bridge wire threaded through from the bridge, from under here, coming up and coming to that hole right there. So that way when I push this stud in, what's going to happen is that's going to lock that bridge into place. What I've done is I've put my studs in the freezer for a little while to make them just a little bit smaller. And it'll help tap those in. You want to be careful. You don't want to damage your guitar surface. What I like to do is I just usually run one of the studs in it. And I run that right down flush with the body. That one needs to go down just a touch more, but you can see it's there, and my ground wire is held into place. I got this trick about freezing it from a clip off of Crimson Guitar's website, or their YouTube channel. One of their builders there, one of the guys that works there and helps teach the class, that's better, recommended doing this. That makes sense. The metal, when it is cold, shrinks a little bit, makes it just a touch easier to get in the hole. And by running this screw all the way down into the bottom, that way I'm putting the load more so on the top of the insert than I am on the threads of the insert. So I'm not going to strip them out. Plus, as you can see, I'm not having to hit very hard. Just run these in, and we're going to make sure the bridge fits on okay. When I did the test fit up and when I did the mock fit, everything fit perfectly. So I don't anticipate any problems now. All right, with the bridge posts installed, let's go ahead and check the bridge. Make sure the bridge and the tailpiece drop in okay. Bridge drops on nice. Stop tailpiece drops on nice. So that's going to be all good to go. Next thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and get the high E and the low E on it. That way we can get the pickups. I'm going to go ahead and put the pickups in the holes. I'm going to put the high E and the low E on. And then that way we can align it, make sure it's where we need it to be before we drill the holes for the pickup mounts. What we're going to do now is just go ahead and check the DC resistance, see what kind of pickups these are. And just to get a kind of an idea of what we've got before it goes in. So the bridge pickup on this is reading 9.74K. I have no idea what magnets are in these, probably just cheap ceramics. Not to say that all ceramics are cheap, because they're not. Wow, and the neck is 10.09. So sometimes, yeah, the neck can read a little bit more. Usually your neck pickup is a little bit lower output because it's going to have a higher volume anyway because it's picking up more of the string vibration. But let's go ahead and get these routed into the cavity and get them taped down and start looking at mounting these up. So the neck pickup has a hole that you feed it through from the neck cavity into the bridge pickup cavity. And then you feed that into the pickup cavity itself. I'm going to pull this protective tape off the chrome cover. Tape it down to the guitar so it doesn't flop around any. Now let's go ahead and get the bridge pickup put in. Go and let's tape these down. All right, so when positioning your pickups, basically what you want to do is you want to make sure that the pole pieces are centered, or that the pole pieces are under the strings. And then be careful with your pickup front to back, because you do have that space. So if you go too far back, you end up showing part of your pickup cavity. And you don't want to do that. So you want to kind of center them on that. And then what I like to do is I like to drill one hole. And then I like to drill the second hole in the opposite corner. Now I can go and snug these two down, and then I just double check all the way around, and make sure I'm clear, don't have any gaps. I'm lined up on my pole. As you can see, I'm lined up on my pole pieces. Now I can go ahead, and then what I usually do is I'll usually drill the neck next, just because that way I'm ready to go. And this is where a straight edge comes in handy. That way you can make sure your pickups are straight and level and parallel with one another. Same thing, make sure your gap is covered. You can go too far forward or too far back, because it does go all the way up to the neck, but if you push the pickup all the way up to the neck, then you leave too much of a space behind, and you end up leaving a gap behind the pickup, which you don't want to leave. And that little bit in front isn't as visible. Now I still have a little bit of room there if I need to readjust to make sure everything's square, but everything is still square. I'm going to retape it here at the bottom just to make sure it doesn't move. And then I'm going to draw the hole in this opposite corner. Let's go ahead and drill these last two holes in each of the pickup surrounds and get the last holes mounted, or the last screws drilled. There we have it. Pickups are mounted. So it's time to solder up the pickups. What I've got is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tin the wires. I've got my ground wire here, and then I got my hot lead here for each pickup. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wire those to the pots. I'm not actually going to be able to video doing the soldering because it's down in the cavity and there's just no way to get a good view of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and solder it off camera, and then I'll bring you back and show you what I've done. Okay, so I'm going to bring this in handheld to see if you can see everything that's going on. So what I've done, this is my neck pickup. You can see I've got it wired to the hot lead there with the lead going from that to the tone pot. I've also got the ground to the back of the pot. And then I did the exact same thing with the bridge pickup. So those are wired in now. All the wiring seems good. I did a tug test on everything. I don't think anything else is going to break. So this guitar is now wired up. So what I'm going to get ready to do now is just go ahead and get the back cover on. It'll be ready to get strings put on it and do the initial setup. So while I've got the drill out, I'm going to go ahead and drill the back cover holes so we can go ahead and have that done. That way I don't have any more drilling left to do on the guitar. So I've got the cover in place, so let's go ahead and drill some holes. Alright, so that's the control cavity holes drilled. Well, alright, that's going to wrap up this video. Really happy with the way the guitar's turned out so far. Also, I was really happy with the weight that the guitar came in at. Came out at 6.61 pounds, so that's really good. It's not neck heavy at all, even with the locking tuners on it. So far with this one that I'm just using a 2-inch nylon strap, and I haven't had any neck dive at all. So where I put the pickup, where I put the strap buttons worked out really well. Again, no neck dive. I am going to get some sound samples done for the next video, and then during that video we're also going to do the swap out of pickups and kind of do a head-to-head comparison of what they sounded like with the stock pickups and what they sounded like with my pickups and the new wiring once it's installed. So that's going to be in the next video, but for now, thank you very much for tuning in. If you like what I'm doing, click like, click subscribe, follow along with the channel. I've got a lot of things coming up, but until next time, take care.